Hey everyone, welcome to another video. My name's Kavya. Today I'm going to be sharing the process of how we created a board and batten feature wall in our master bedroom. Now, wood paneled walls, I gotta say, I got a bit of a soft spot for them, whether it's board and batten, shiplap, picture frame molding, you name it, I'll probably love it. I think it adds so much character and charm to a space, and when it's done right, in my opinion, it can really elevate a room and make it feel more luxurious and high-end, if you will. It's also a feature that I've often seen in a lot of display homes, and it's something I've always wanted to try and recreate. So today we're going to be doing just that. I also want to thank the wonderful folks over at Tint for partnering with me on today's video. Tint is an Australian company that specialize in high quality paint products. Their products are so well thought out, and they have done some amazing work when it comes to streamlining the paint process and making it more accessible, easy, and enjoyable for all of us DIYers out there. So definitely keep your eyes and ears peeled. I'll be chatting all about them later on in the video, and I also have a special discount code for you guys, so stick around for that. For now, let's get started. First up was figuring out what style of wood paneling I wanted in this space. I've been loving the board and batten look, so that's what I went with. But even within the board and batten domain, I discovered that there were so many different styles and configurations for laying my timber out on the wall. I went onto Pinterest, which is my go-to spot for finding inspiration for pretty much everything in life, and just sifted through a bunch of images, created a bit of a mood board, and there were three particular styles that caught my eye. The first one was this grid style wall where you have horizontal and vertical pieces of timber creating this checkered look. The second style was having vertical lines from floor to ceiling going across the length of the wall. And the third style that seemed to come up a lot was a partial board and batten wall, where you have wood paneling going part way up the wall with some kind of ledge topping it off. And this was the style that I ended up going with for this room. I love the idea of having a ledge. I think it creates a bit more versatility if I do want to go ahead and display any smaller home decor pieces later on. I love the two-tone look, and also having a flat wall above the wood paneling would definitely make it easier for me to hang up paintings and create a bit of a gallery wall if that was something I wanted to do in future. Step 2 was getting all of our exact measurements and mapping out our design on the wall so we had a good idea of the size and amount of timber we needed to purchase. I started by measuring the width of the wall, which was about 4 meters, and then marking off how far up the wall I wanted my vertical panels, aka battens, to sit. Given the headboard of our bed frame was on the larger and chunkier side, I decided to have the vertical panels extend higher than our headboard, so once the bed was back in place, we'd still be able to see this beautiful board and batten feature on top of the bed. I used some masking tape to tape off a rough design. Obviously the spacing here was very far from accurate, but it definitely gave us a good visual. The next thing we did was an added step, but if you're doing this for the first time like we were, it might be useful to head to the store and pick up 1 or 2 pieces of the timber you're considering using in the exact width and depth. Unfortunately, they didn't have any shorter panels at the store, so we picked up one of these longer pieces. It cost us a little bit extra overall, but was well worth the trip because the instant we laid this out on the wall, we realized that the panels we had been considering were just too thin for this space, and they weren't going to give us that look we were after. So we ended up recalculating everything, sizing up and going for a wider panel, and honestly, best decision we made. Picking up a trial piece was also great for us to check if the timber was going to sit flush with the existing skirtings and door frame on this wall. We weren't planning on removing those. I've seen a lot of videos where they do get removed, but we wanted to save some time and money, so we ended up keeping them and working around them. Once we'd established the width of the timber we were using, the next step was to calculate the exact spacing of our vertical panels so we knew how many to buy, and to also plan ahead if any of them were going to fall on electrical outlets and so on. Now this step involves a bit of math, but if you're creating a similar design to us, here's a super easy formula that you can use to measure your spacing. First, you want to multiply the width of your vertical panel by the number of vertical panels going along your wall. Our panel was was 6.7 centimeters wide and we were using 11 panels in total. Subtract that answer from the total width of your wall, so our wall was 402 centimeters. And finally, divide that answer by the number of gaps or spaces between the vertical panels on the wall. So we had a total of 10 spaces. And voila, you have the precise spacing, and you guys will see exactly how I use this number a little later on. It was time to go shopping. We ended up going with primed pine, which was more expensive but definitely saved us time as they were ready to paint and we didn't need to worry about sanding and priming each panel ourselves. My biggest tip when buying your timber is to make sure you get pieces that are as straight as possible. I laid each piece out on the floor on all of its 4 sides, and you'd be pretty surprised with how many of them we had to put back as they were pretty curved. We also used some liquid nail, paintable caulk, Spak filler, 30 and 40 millimeter brad nails for our nail gun, paint of our choice, a stirring stick, an angle brush for cutting in, a paint tray, roller, drop sheets, and some painter's tape. In terms of tools, we used a miter saw, nail gun, tape measure, spirit level, and stud finder to make sure everything was nailed in position. If you don't have a miter saw or nail gun on hand, I'd highly recommend maybe borrowing one or hiring one, as it makes the entire process so much easier. You can also get your wood pre-cut at your hardware store, but I probably wouldn't recommend this as I found that our walls were a little bit crooked here and there, so our measurements did vary slightly. And so if you're after the best results, I'd say measure and cut each piece of timber as you go along. Step 4 was prepping the wall. Ours was in pretty good shape, so I just gave it a good clean and then topped it off with a coat of primer. Now that we were working with a nice clean slate, it was time to get our wood panels up on the wall and start creating this vision. I started by attaching the top and bottom horizontal boards. We couldn't find a board that was long enough to stretch across the entire width of our wall, so we ended up using 2 separate pieces. Where the boards met on the wall, I measured and created a 45-degree bevel cut, so basically cutting in at an angle so that when the boards interlocked, they sat together tightly and formed a smoother surface. For the top horizontal board, we used a spirit level to draw out a straight line, applied some liquid nail onto the back of that board, and then stuck it up onto the wall. The liquid nail is great for holding your timber up on the wall. You can still slide and wiggle it around if you're not happy with the alignment, and it also gave me enough time to then use my stud finder, mark out the studs, and then nail the timber into the wall at those points. Next, I boxed off those horizontal sections by attaching my 2 vertical panels on either end. I measured and cut each piece individually, popped some liquid nail on the back, and then stuck them up onto the wall. I made sure the panel was nice and level before nailing it in. With my vertical panels, not all of them landed on a stud, so I made sure to use a generous amount of adhesive and nails along the length of the board. Then it was time to attach the rest of the vertical battens. But before I went ahead and did this, I got a scrap piece of timber and cut out 2 pieces that were exactly 32.83 centimeters in length each. And if you recall from earlier in the video, this was our exact spacing that we calculated for each of our vertical panels. And these 2 pieces of timber were going to act as spacers when I was positioning out each of my panels. Before I cut and glued anything onto the wall, I used some of the offcuts and taped them onto the wall first, just to make sure that everything fell into place as per our calculations. And then it was go time. I measured and cut each panel individually, popped some liquid nail along the back, checked they were straight, and then nailed them in. Once I'd done a couple of these, I got the hang of it as the process was pretty repetitive. The 2 spaces I created came in so handy as well because I didn't have to worry about individually measuring each gap whilst also attempting to stick the panels up on the wall, so it definitely made things a little bit easier. The next panel fell on one of our electrical points, and we had planned for this, and it is bound to happen at some point. The good thing was that it fell smack bang in the middle of this outlet, so we didn't need to cut out any curves. Instead, we just cut our existing panel into two, a smaller and longer piece, and then nailed them into the gaps like we'd done with all the previous panels. Once the vertical panels were up, we went ahead and installed that top ledge. I decided to add a smaller piece of trim along the front, just underneath the ledge, to support it a bit more structurally and also add a decorative flair. I applied a bead of glue along the top of that horizontal board and ran a bit of it just up onto the wall as well, and then we went ahead and glued down that ledge on top. To secure it properly, we nailed the ledge down into the timber below it. Now this part was tricky because on 2 occasions we realized we hadn't aimed far back enough, so the nail actually came through the ledge and stuck out in front of the timber below it. We ended up cutting out those nails using pliers, and to stop this from happening again, we decided to glue and nail our smaller piece of trim into all the studs along the wall so it was nice and secure, and then we went back to nailing the rest of that ledge down. This way, even if we accidentally didn't aim the nail far back enough, it would still go into that smaller piece of trim, which was secured into the studs in our wall. At this point, I was ready to splash some color onto this thing, but there were a few extra steps to make sure we ended up with a professional finish. I took some Spak filler and filled in each and every nail hole that we'd created. Once it was dry, I gave everything a very light sand to make sure the surfaces were smooth, and then used a damp cloth followed by a tack cloth to get rid of all that dust. I ran a bead of caulk along all the gaps between every single wood panel and the wall. This included the top ledge and any joints where 2 boards met. I dipped my finger in some water and then ran that over the caulk to smooth it all out and let everything dry completely. Alright folks, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. It was finally time to color this beauty in, or should I say, add some tint. Now, you guys know I love a good DIY, and a lot of projects I take on around the house usually involve painting. If you've been around for a while, then you'll also know that I love finding ways to live a healthier and greener lifestyle where I can. This is why I've loved using Tint products around my home. All of their paints are 99% free of VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which are harmful air pollutants often found in a lot of household paints. Their products are completely vegan and animal cruelty free, and the biggest bonus of all, their paint is completely odor free. It's made painting so much more enjoyable as I no longer have to deal with any smelly, irritating paint fumes. Their products are so well thought out, from the way they're designed and packaged, it all just makes sense. The first step was choosing a paint color. Tint have a gorgeous range of colors to choose from, with, might I add, some of the cutest names. They also custom make colors if you can't find your Goldilocks shade, and if you're still uncertain, no worries, because you can book in a free virtual stylist session where a Tint stylist can look at your space and any existing furniture and decor and help you find that perfect hue. I started off by ordering a bunch of their peel and stick swatches, as I knew I had a fair few projects coming up. These swatches were so much cheaper and easier to use compared to sample paint pots. All I had to do was peel the backing off and stick them up on the wall. And even better, once I was done, I could easily peel them off again, pop the backing back on, and reuse them later. Now for this room, I wanted to keep things light, bright, and airy, and ended up going for this gorgeous shade of light beige called Fika. Once I knew my color, it was as simple as grabbing my phone, scanning the QR code on the swatch, which took me straight to the product on their website. I used the paint calculator to figure out exactly how much paint I needed before placing the order. If you're new to painting, they also have toolkits that include everything you need to get started, so no more running around the store trying to figure out what to buy. Once ordered, everything landed on my doorstep in just a few days and I was set to go. It was as easy as that. If you guys want to check out Tint in more detail, I'll leave all the information in the description. You can also use the discount code lifeofkotts for an extra 10% off orders over 150 Australian dollars. Alright folks, that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave it a like if you did. I'm so happy with how this wall turned out. Honestly, better than what I was expecting. I love the paint color. I love the spacing of the panels. I think we got it just right. And I'm also loving our new light fixtures, which I just sneakily added in there at the end. I can't wait to style this space completely. I'll be filming everything, of course, and sharing the full transformation with you guys in the near future. So if you haven't subscribed and you want to follow along, be sure to do that. Also, huge shout out to Tint. I'll leave all of their details and that discount code in the description. So be sure to head on over there, check them out. And for now, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.